Ken Timonen. Ken, great to see you. I think you just heard my conversation there with Elisa. Just explain, please, for viewers back home, and me as well, who aren't too familiar with the Houthis, but they were involved in attacking British ships, Royal Navy ships, I think in 2023. Just explain to us, please, what's happened since then in terms of their organisation.
Well, look, the Houthis, when the Iranians give them the go-ahead and give them the green light, the Houthis attack everybody. They attack Israel. They attack whatever shipping is there going through the Bab el-Mandeb from the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal to the Red Sea and out. They attack U.S. ships. And it was only until President Trump in March of 2025, just 2 months after returning to office, when President Trump ordered the U.S. armed forces to launch strikes against them. Those strikes lasted for quite some time. They hit over 1,000 targets. I would not like to be the Houthi commander today who is responding to a request from Tehran to reopen attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. They will be wiped out in short order.
Well, look, there's been lots of criticism towards our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, who today has said, I'm not getting dragged into this war, I'm standing up to President Trump, so on and so on. Somebody on our comments page, Ken, has just said Starmer is gutless. Is that true? Because it is in Britain's interest that the likes of the Houthis, that the IRGC, that Iran is dealt with. So why is President Trump being left to deal with this alone when the world's economy is teetering on the edge?
Well, that's a great question. On this side of the pond, let me tell you, there's a lot of concern about the so-called special relationship between the United States and the UK with your Prime Minister today. There are many people who wonder whether there is still a special relationship that has survived. When the NATO countries and the UK want us to get involved in Ukraine, we were there. $350 billion of aid, which dwarfed what the Europeans were doing. And this was a war on European soil. Now, when President Trump has called on NATO allies to come and help, not to strike Iran, but to maintain international shipping, freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, and eventually through the Bab el-Mandeb, what do we hear? We hear this nonsense from the British Prime Minister who says it's not our war, from the Belgians, from the Germans, from the French, it's not our war. It is their war. It's the oil and gas and the commodities that are needed primarily in Europe. The United States doesn't need that. We are self-sufficient in oil and gas. We don't need any petroleum products coming from the Strait of Hormuz. And I'm wondering whether the president, when this is all over, is going to rethink his tariff policy towards the NATO countries, or whether he is going to rethink his strategy towards NATO, and that funding goal is not going to be 5%, it may be 10% or 15%.
Yeah, you've just asked my question for me, Ken. I was going to say about the future of NATO, but one point I didn't consider is the tariffs, which you quite shrewdly have mentioned. I mean, that is another weapon in the Prime Minister's, the President's arsenal. He loves a tariff. He could slap higher tariffs on those NATO countries. Just briefly and finally, the future of NATO, is it realistically under threat now?
NATO is under threat, and is under threat because of its own lack of resolve, because of the actions of NATO leaders, European NATO leaders, their failure to step up to the plate. If we are an alliance, what are we an alliance to do? I mean, here is a clear and present danger to international shipping, to freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, and NATO will not step up to the plate, will not send minesweepers, will not send Navy ships. They did it in 1988. They won't do it today. I think there's going to be all hell to pay for this.
Yeah, I mean, what's the, if you're President Trump, what's the point? You've got Spain, who pays something like 2% of their GDP towards NATO, refusing the US to even use airfields and bases to, protect them, protect their people, protect the world economy. If you're President Trump, you must be thinking, what's the point of all this? What's going on here? What am I doing here? Ken, thank you so much. Ken Timonen, great to have you on the show. Please come back when you can. Senior Fellow at the America First Policy Institute. Thanks, Ken. Thanks. Right, let's take a quick look at some of the other news stories breaking here in America.